honestly, I got bullied into doing my first ice bath. And I remember afterwards just having this amazing clarity. And that was the thing that really got me hooked. And I fell in love with it because it gave me this sense of accomplishment and resilience.
Have you been on the dating apps before?
Yeah. And even during that phase when I was single, there were definitely times when I'd go on the app and, it's like the excitement and the disappointment that just comes with it. And I know within a few seconds of meeting someone whether I like them or not.
Yes. Laura Fullerton, a serial entrepreneur and the founder and CEO of Monk, a health tech startup that's really revolutionising overall well-being.
Yeah, the last time that I was single, it was a really enjoyable process. For me, that period of being single was more about rebuilding and recalibrating. I guess deeply pour into myself and just figure out what I wanted. Your relationship with yourself 100% rules every relationship you have with everyone else.
So welcome, Laura. Thank
Thanks.
you so much for joining us on PSI Love Me. So you've been running your businesses for the last 9 years. You've been a busy bee.
Yes, I have. And do you know what? I didn't actually realise it had been that long until you mentioned that.
Time flies when you're having fun. And this isn't your first health business, is it?
No, technically it's my second health business, I would say.
Yes. And what were your other two businesses?
So the first one was a health and fitness subscription box. So very much in my wheelhouse. My love is just nutrition and health and all things well-being, really.
Yeah.
And the second one was a completely rogue move into commercial property.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Totally different.
Totally different. I tried to shoehorn wellness in, but it didn't really work.
And what led you into founding Monk?
Pure frustration, really. I guess I've always been into biohacking, and everything I do really is about, I just want to feel great mentally and physically and emotionally. And having been a founder multiple times, you know what it's like. It's the most stressful and exhilarating thing ever. And I got bullied into doing my first ice bath. And I remember afterwards just having this amazing clarity. And that was the thing that really got me hooked. And I fell in love with it because it gave me this sense of accomplishment and resilience, and it just really almost gave me a break. It was like pushing the reset button on from having that, always on founder mentality.
Yes.
And then, I just learned the hard way that it was really inaccessible, and that eventually led me to creating Monk, which ironically was probably much harder. But
because people don't realise with ice baths, it's not just about the benefits of being submerged in ice cold water, but it's the mindset that you have to engage and the breath work to be able to stand 3, 5, 10 minutes worth of ice water, essentially.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, it was so much less about recovery for me as it was like the mental challenge.
Yes.
And just the resilience and confidence you build through that.
Yes. I know they say that the Wim Hof method as well, they say once you conquer your mindset, anything in the world is possible. So if you can start with 20, 30 seconds, then get yourself up to 5, 6 minutes. I remember when I first started getting into ice baths, I could manage about 30 seconds. And then when I was in a wellness retreat last year, I ended up going up to 15 minutes. And then I actually Googled afterwards. I was like, oh, that's actually not that good for you. Mm-hmm. But it was a mindset of going, yes, I can do another 30 seconds. Yes, I can do another minute. So, but it increases your dopamine by how many percent? Is it 200?
Around 250%.
That's
That was one
amazing.
study, which is equivalent to cocaine. But unlike, taking narcotics, you don't have that crazy high and crash. It's sustained over hours and hours. So I think it's one of the most powerful ways to take control of your mental health.
Oh, I absolutely love it. It's super addictive. So tell me about the ice baths, the at-home self-cleaning ice baths.
Yes, yeah. People love the self-cleaning feature.
Yes.
So really, it's we use ozone sanitization, which it's completely natural. We didn't want to use chlorine. It's just chemicals in the skin, which you don't really want. And ozone, it's become the gold standard of treating cold water. So a lot of the Olympic swimming pools are now switching to ozone.
Ozone. And how does that work?
Yeah. So the molecule is O3. So we all know O2. So it has an additional molecule, and somehow that changes it into this really phenomenal cleaning.
How clever.
Yeah. But so it's what I think biased is a a beautiful at-home smart ice bath. But the problem we were solving was that people don't really know how to use it safely or effectively. So like to your point earlier, people would be doing 10, 15 minutes in ice bath. Actually, that's not always that safe.
Absolutely.
So if you were using it for mental health or muscle recovery, you use it in a really different way. But people don't know that. So we've created this connected ice bath and app system that acts as your cold water therapy coach. So it really teaches you how to do it. So you have the confidence that you're using it effectively and you're going to get the most benefits for your health.
Oh, amazing. And so you would buy both of them together, the ice bath and the app. Can you purchase the app on its own? So
the app's completely free. And even if you have a competitor ice bath or you're just using, your bath at home, you can still use it for the guidance. So
that's amazing. I've never heard of apps specifically for cold water therapy.
Yeah, you have to check
great.
it out.
Can't wait. Anyway, on to kind of running businesses and being a health entrepreneur. It's also sometimes a bit of a contradiction because everyone always thinks that, when you're a health entrepreneur, a wellness entrepreneur, you've always got your own health in check. And, you see Elle Macpherson with her Well & Co. and hasn't drunk for 10 years and she just looks the epitome of health. And when it's not really that realistic sometimes. How have you approached your overall well-being over the last 10, 15 years and what have you learned along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was that realistic.
Don't we all?
And it's ironic because, I got into this because I love everything health and fitness related. And then the first thing to fall by the wayside is your own mental health.
Totally.
I think in the early days of being an entrepreneur, I thought it was just pure grit and hard work that will get you through.
Yeah.
But then you realise that actually burnout will happen to you no matter what if that's the case and you're just constantly going for it. So I think I've been on a long journey trying to figure out what is really sustainable and what's right for me because you end up realising that if you're just running yourself into the ground, your business isn't going to be successful. It really does depend on you.
You can't pour from an empty cup, that old saying.
Yeah, and it's so true.
Yeah, I had a couple of health burnouts in my PR agency. But I always tend to find that health entrepreneurs have learnt the hard way.
Yes.
They've had to, when you think you're invincible and you're working all hour God sends, and then your body's like, I'm going to teach you a lesson more than once because you aren't learning.
Yeah. And you know what? My body has this really amazing way of telling me if I'm pushing too hard and I will just get a sore throat. And it's not, it's completely different to picking up a cold or something from someone else and it just flares up. And, within a day I'll be back to normal as long as I, rest and do the things that I know work for me. But I think one of the most profound shifts that has had such an impact on me is prioritizing sleep. Because we all think of sleep as, it's something to do when you finish the day, no matter whether it's midnight or 3 a.m. Once you finish your work, that's when you get to sleep. But actually just completely flipping that on its head and viewing sleep as the number one important thing and just really kind of guarding that time, and you realize actually everything becomes so much easier around from that.
Yeah, and I 100% agree, if you focus on that as your basis for health, everything else kind of slots in, because if you start tracking your sleep and you're looking at your HRV and everything else, if you've had too much wine before bed and all the rest of it, everything else starts lining up, doesn't it?
Yes.
Do you use any trackers for your sleep? Like
I
a
do.
Whoop or an Oura ring?
I use Oura.
Oh, amazing.
I have to say I do. I love Oura. And I know some people don't like tracking because they see the data and they use that to determine how they feel. But obviously, it depends on your mentality to it. But I've used it for years now, and it's so fascinating because I can see if I try something different or I try a new sleep supplement, I can then see the impact that it's actually had.
Yeah.
And I think you just have to approach it with the right mindset that you're not using it to dictate how you feel, but it's it's a mechanism that's there.
Absolutely. And I agree. I used to wear a Whoop. I used to wear a Whoop and an Apple Watch. I've actually just bought an Oura. It's turning up next week.
Oh, exciting.
The latest 4 series. But I was wearing a Whoop and an Apple Watch, and it was right when Whoop came out. And I was like you, always trying all the latest health stuff. And one was telling me to slow down, and then my Apple Watch was telling me to move more. And I was like, for goodness sake, whacked them both off and stuck my old-fashioned Amiga back on. But there's something to be said about what I picked up from there is that self-awareness. Like, how am I feeling today? Yes, the stats and the facts speak for themselves, but it's that self-awareness of how you're feeling. Like when you're getting run down, if it's a sore throat or if you carry stress in your stomach or other things, just being quite mindful of what is showing up in your body and when to slow down and start implementing more of a strategic health plan, because we all go by the wayside, don't we? With all the means in the world, life gets busy and sometimes we need some nips and tucks along the way to get back on track with our health and well-being.
Completely.
And what do you find, when you're, you've been in launch. Have you launched Monk fully yet?
I would say we're launching.
Yes.
So we have product with customers.
Yes.
So people are saying, that's it, you've launched, but we haven't fulfilled all our pre-orders. So I think once we get to that point, then I feel confident saying, we've launched.
I know. And
Monk's
it's hard.
real.
And it's hard. I've been there in that launch phase. And then for any busy female entrepreneur or high achiever or director, when you're in launch phase and like every second counts and you want to make it as impactful as possible, how do you find the time between balancing your personal life and your health with running your business?
Oh, it's a really tough question because I don't think, well, firstly, I think business and life are so intertwined, especially when you do something that you genuinely love.
Yes, like and you're living and breathing the brand as well.
Yeah, completely. So it's really hard to separate the two. But I think I do try and be pretty regimented. And for example, Thursday night is date night. And it's like nothing really gets in the way of that. And I try and be good and not work over the weekends.
Yes.
So I try and have some sort of boundaries there. But it is difficult. And I think you're never going to be able to give 100% to your business, to your relationships, to X, Y, Z. Like there's always going to be something that has to give. And I think how I view it anyway is going through different phases. I just have to adjust what that focus is.
Yeah.
And accept that, I'm not going to be socialising that much right now because I'm in full-on work mode.
Yeah. It's just checks and balances and adjusting your boundaries as you go along. Friends will understand for 2 or 3 months when you're super busy. Your partner will understand. And then work will understand when you want more of that time. And I think it's just being quite strategic almost. And as you say, keeping to date night, keeping to your strategy with your health and well-being. Otherwise, you'll know what will happen if you don't put focus and emphasis on that, essentially.
Yeah, for sure.
And aside to your cold therapy, what else do you do to keep yourself fit and healthy?
Ooh, so I love working out. Strength training is my real go-to.
Yes.
Although I guess the broader context is I try and live in line with my infradian rhythm, the whole female 28-day cycle. So even with working out, there's certain phases where I will be strength training and certain phases where I'll be doing Pilates, and even a phase where for a week I just won't really work out.
Yeah.
But it's not even just exercising. I guess I try and tailor it with the foods I'm eating and also when I can, what kind of work I'm doing as well. So I guess it really shifts around that. But yeah, I would say definitely exercise is a huge one for me. Of course, I love cold water therapy, but again, aligned to the right times.
No, I agree. And I've read a lot about that and even planning your meetings around your circadian patterns, which can be really, really tricky. But I think just going back to the basics of certain times a month, our bodies need more carbs than others for our hormone support. I mean, stop with this zero carb stuff. I think, our bodies need a right balance of all the different nutrients. And you're right with workouts and stuff. You don't want to be pounding the treadmill on day 1 or day 2 of your cycle. So it swings and roundabouts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I think, it depends what phase I'm going through. Let's say work is crazy, stressful and intense. There'll be so many different tools I'll use. It might be that, I don't know if you have this, when you just feel so overwhelmed, there's so much on.
Yes.
I try and take quite a logical approach to it, and I'll just write down everything I'm bothered by and write what's the worst that's going to happen, what's the best thing, what can I do? And I just try and make a bit of an action plan of that.
Mindset, absolutely. It's okay, what is the big reason that I'm stressed right now? Is it the amount of work? Am I overthinking? And just breaking it down. And actually, when you break it all down, it becomes more doable, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because stress does come up out physiologically in our bodies if you don't control it in the mind first.
For
right?
sure.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Some of us carry it on our hips, some of us carry it in our diaphragm. And I remember when I've been really, really stressed, I've been bent, like this is about 15 years ago when I didn't understand anything about stress or how it came out in your body. But yeah, I think it comes out in different ways depending on, what kind of body type and how you process stress, really.
Yeah. Do you know, weirdly, I've realised recently, if I'm really upset, I will feel a pain down my left arm.
Really?
But that's how I know if something's actually really upsetting me.
Bothering you.
Yeah, it's so bizarre.
It's like a gut instinct, but down your arm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see that's, again, self-awareness. It's understanding what's triggering you and what's happening in your body when you have external stresses or emotional stresses or whatnot. So it's fascinating how the body shows up, isn't it? That connection. If you love PS I Love Me and want to dive in deeper, then join the Evolve Woman, my 8-week online coaching program, which will take you on a transformative journey of self-discovery, fulfillment, and to find the joy and love you so deserve. Check out my Instagram, Linda Williams Coach, to find out more. So going on to being a female entrepreneur, I think there's this misconception, and I've certainly had it, is that, we're naturally going to have high self-worth because we're confident, we've got a successful business. But that's not always the case with entrepreneurs, is it, when it comes to self-esteem, self-love, self-worth? Have you been on a journey with that in your life?
Yeah, to be honest, I think I've been on quite a long journey with it without even realising. I think as a child, I think I was always quite shy and fairly reserved. And if I look back to even when I started Monk, I think I viewed myself very differently then. And I've never run a health tech startup before. I've never built hardware or software, and I was just setting out to do both.
Yes.
And I think actually, if I knew what the journey was going to be like, I probably never would have started. And I think that would be the same for anyone.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
If you actually
what the
saw
hell
it,
did I sign up for?
which I guess is the beauty of it. You do it step by step. But I was suddenly faced with doing all these things I'd never done before. But you've also got to think, no baby's born having run a P&L. Like you have to do things at some point for the first time.
Yeah.
And I think as you do that, you just build so much confidence as you go. And I remember really vividly when I started Monk, of someone I was incredibly close to who became my chairman, and he had a wildly different skill set to me. He was so, finance, economics. He knew how to structure deals brilliantly. He was just one of the smartest people I knew. Really look up to him and respect him. But my skill set was really different. I had not had any of the experience that he had. And I was pretty regularly made aware of that. And I even remember saying once, well, we both know I'll never be the long-term CEO, which to me now sounds crazy. And I then met someone else who became very close. And he's actually now my chairman. And again, he has a totally different skill set. He's super creative, super strategic. And I think we get on so well because I think he saw in me, like his skill set reflected back, we're really similar. And it took that it was almost a catalyst that unlocked this self-belief in myself. And that was really, the start of me just believing in myself a bit more and realising actually the reason Monk is what it is because of the natural abilities that I have. So just trying to lean into that. And I think that really reframed a lot of how I view myself and how I show up.
Yeah, because we're not born with self-belief. We're not born with confidence. It's a muscle that has to be squeezed and squeezed. And, it's taking that leap of faith. It's trying different things and having that confidence that in business things are going to go well, not so well, and being able to pivot and switch and grow with that. As Stephen Bartlett says, failure is feedback. Feedback is knowledge, and knowledge is power at the end of the day. And I think, that goes for confidence inside and outside of work as well. And when it comes to ourselves and our confidence and belief in ourselves as a person and how we show up in a relationship as well, I think that can be said the same in our personal lives as well.
Yeah.
And how have you gone on with dating over the last 9 years? Have you managed to carve out time? I know you're with someone at the moment, so we'll dive into that in a sec. But have you managed to carve out time for proactive dating, or you just been focused on your businesses?
I think a bit of both. My last relationship, I guess I was single for a couple of years when starting Monk, or at least like when I was a little way into Monk. And in all honesty, I'd come out of like quite a bad relationship. And so for me, that period of being single was more about rebuilding and recalibrating. And it really gave me that time to, I guess, deeply pour into myself and just figure out what I wanted. And I work with a therapist as well, not just to unpack what had happened in my previous relationship, but understand like why I'd let myself be in that situation. Like I've always thought of myself as being pretty grounded, like clear on my values, and where I ended up was just so far removed from that. And it was really shocking in hindsight to be like, wow, how did I get there? So yeah, the last time that I was single, I was going to say it was a really enjoyable process. It wasn't, because it was hard and challenging, and I don't want to romanticize it, because at times being single can be so lonely.
Yes.
But yeah, for me, it was much more of a time to get clear on what I wanted. I guess not just of myself, but of a future partner, and really try and just get clarity on that.
Yes, because a lot of the time it's about introspection of who we are. Our maps of the world. We are a product of our experiences as well. Our childhood, our family dynamics, our education, whether we're bullied at school or not, past relationships, successes, failures, personally and professionally, of who we are today. And, if how the scale of how empathetic we are as well kind of sways as to how we show up in a relationship too, and what we're willing to tolerate and what we're not willing to tolerate. And I think once you stand still and look at yourself introspectively and understand who you are and how you showed up previously and how you want to show up in future relationships, and actually what those values are, and that's the difference of attracting the right person, essentially.
Yeah.
So you went through a few therapy sessions, and that really helped you gain self-awareness and
I
what
think
you
it
wanted.
just put me back to almost like an even keel.
Yes.
And from there, I feel like I just recalibrated. And you know what I just thought of? I haven't put the dots together on this before, but one of my friends, Catherine, she is phenomenal. She's a founder, and she's just got this incredible business. I really look up to her. And she told me this crazy story where she had come out of a 7-year relationship, and she's, huge into manifesting, and she figured out, look, I manifest everything else in my life. Why didn't I apply this to a guy? And she sat down with a big piece of paper, and she literally mapped out what she wanted, in terms of what does he do? Where does he hang out? All these, different features. The only physical thing was that he would have to be tall and have a nice smile.
Yes. That's fair enough.
And she tried to rope a couple of her friends in there, like, look, you're mad, but like, we'll lean into this. And she even mapped out the 3 places that she thought this kind of man would hang out. And they spent the summer going out and having a great time. And one day she walked into one of the places, which was a pub in Fulham. And there was a guy sitting on a stool, and she said to her friend, if he stands up and he's tall, that's my husband. And he stood up and looked at her and had this amazing smile, and they're now married with 3 kids.
No.
Yeah.
Wow, what an amazing story.
Yeah. And I remember telling this to one of my best friends who, I think she'd come out of a relationship around the same time as me. So it's, I don't know, a year and a half on, and we were both like, look, we're ready to date again. And I told her this story. And so we sat down with the paper and we did the same, figured out, what are their values, what kind of, just figured out what we'd actually want from a person, which in itself just gives you such amazing clarity.
Yeah.
And she mapped out, where he would hang out, and it would be a gym. Like, fitness is really, really important to her. And she's part of Gym Box. So she decided that once a week she would go and work out at a different gym box around London.
Brilliant. See what the talent's like.
Yeah.
And see if she goes for another session or not.
Yeah. But even if nothing happens, I think you're just putting yourself in a different mindset. You're putting yourself out there. You've got clear on what you want from a partner. So I think it's just quite a fun exercise to do.
Oh, I love that pub story.
Yeah, it's great, right?
If he stands up, she must have picked up on some vibes from him and been eyeing him up a little bit before some random stood up from his bar stool.
Yeah.
What a great story. But you're right. I think once you get really, really clear on what you do and don't want, everything else that's not right for you kind of just falls away. Instead of going out there dating and have no clue who you are or what is important to you and what a relationship looks like for you in the future, then it can be quite tricky to navigate, especially with dating apps.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Have you been on the dating apps before?
Yeah. And even during that phase when I was single, there were definitely times when I'd go on the app and, it's like the excitement and the disappointment that just comes with it. And I think I know within a few seconds of meeting someone whether I like them or not.
Yes, it's instant, isn't it? It's like 30 seconds, you'll know whether there's that spark or not.
Yeah. And to be honest, over the years, I've definitely met some amazing people on the apps, but no one I've had a relationship with.
No. Yeah, you can meet really fascinating people who end up being friends, or I'm still in touch with somebody, I've done a bit of business with them because we had quite a lot in common.
Yeah.
I just didn't fancy him.
Yeah.
But I thought he was a really great guy. And we're friends and we're doing a bit of business together. So
nice.
There can be some positive stories, even if you're not meant for each other.
Yeah.
It can lead to other things.
And I know people who have successfully found partners and they're now married and they've met on the app. So undoubtedly it works for some people.
Yes. And there's that saying though, when you start understanding yourself more and what fills your cup up and what makes you happiest, you're in that kind of, you've got that sparkle in your eye, you've got that energy, you're feeling good about yourself and about life. So while you are single, spending time on yourself is only going to be great for your future self, whether you're with someone or not, because you're in your prime, you embracing life, you're not sat there clicking your fingers, waiting for Mr. Right to come along. You're enjoying life whilst kind of you're waiting for him to come along, if that makes sense. I'll edit that bit out.
No, it does though.
No, it does, right? So if you work on yourself and do what makes you happy, you do have this aura around you.
For sure. And actually, after I did that exercise I mentioned, I went with some friends. I think we were having brunch at Dalesford, somewhere like that.
Oh, nice.
I love these healthy kind of
Me
places.
too.
And some guy actually came over and asked for my number. And then 2 days later, I was leaving Whole Foods. Again, I love Whole Foods. And some guy actually came out of the store and ran down the road and stopped me.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I mean, I wasn't actually interested in either, but still, I feel like maybe I just tapped into something.
Yeah, because you have that sparkle in your eye, you're happy, you feel fulfilled, you've got that kind of, aura about you that you were talking about before. That actually happened to me on Oxford Street a couple of weeks ago, and it hadn't happened to me in years. And I felt sorry for the guy because he was a perfectly respectable guy. But number one, I was like, oh, it's a charity. I don't have time to stop and give them any money. Then number two, I was like, oh, he might be scamming me. Then number three, I was like, oh, what psycho chat someone up on the street? I mean, guys, they can't win, can they?
No.
We moan about the dating apps. And when they do have the confidence to come and ask us out in a real life setting, we're like, oh, what's going on here? And how did you handle both those situations when they asked for your number or they said they were interested in you?
The first one, it was lovely and we had a nice chat,
Aw.
and we exchanged numbers, but then I was just kind of honest and was like, hey, I don't see it in that way.
Yeah.
And the second guy, I almost feel ashamed to admit this, but I said that I had a boyfriend because I didn't know. You're just unprepared for that conversation.
I know, it's a bit weird.
It's suddenly
like,
in your face.
You're like, who are you?
Yeah, but I'll always be like, I love the fact that you just came up someone in the street.
Yes.
Like that takes courage. And so I'll try and,
it takes
reflect
balls,
that.
and I don't feel guys do that so much anymore.
No, because you get shouted at or like you get called all sorts of things just for approaching
Absolutely.
female. So hats off to them for doing it.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and how did you meet your current partner?
Well, that one's debatable because one of my friends will take credit for it. So I'm part of this kind of members networking group called Adorium. And one of my friends, Joe, I got introduced to the group and he came along and he brought my partner, Tommy. And so Joe will say he introduced us. But there were at least 2 times where I said to Joe in the past, like, you must have some, great single friends. And Tommy had done the same to Joe, but Joe had just never thought about putting us together.
Typical.
I know. But yeah, so either of those two would be how we met.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
Because quite often your friends have a different idea of what you want, what they think, who they think's right for you and what your ideal guy is. And they think they know and they're the one in charge. But it's quite interesting, isn't it? When it does come to fruition. My brother actually met his partner through a friend he played golf with, his wife's sister, which was a lovely story of being set up. So
nice.
but yeah, there's more to ways than finding your future partner on apps. You know, they could be anywhere. They could be in like-minded places, like you say, in a gym or a health food store, or getting introduced by a mutual friend is even better because you know a little bit more about them and their background, and you've got someone to give them a reference.
Yeah, exactly. And like the group I met him through, it's like a founder group. Well, it's not actually purely founders. I am part of a couple of those, but I think that would also be a great place to meet people.
And I remember you saying to me a while ago that you found him when you least expected it, or when you thought perhaps you didn't have time for a relationship. And how did you find, what surprised you most about this? Like you carved out time for the right person, or it just naturally, organically happened?
I think it was surprising because it was just so easy. And we've slotted into a really great routine where like Thursday night is date night and we'll see each other all over the weekend, and then every now and then a wild card on a Tuesday, but it's usually Thursday, and it's just so effortless. I think that's also just reflective of the whole relationship.
Yes.
It's just been so easy.
That's quite often the case when, you're in a really healthy, fulfilling relationship, when it flows and it's just easy. A lot of couples say that. It just works. Yes, you have to put effort in, but it just flows and it feels good and healthy and supportive.
Yeah.
I think that's quite important as a female entrepreneur, that you do have a supportive partner that champions you and supports you and not jealous, because, you're a CEO, and for some guys that's hard for their ego.
Yeah.
Right? It's not always, oh wow, she's amazing, she's a CEO, she's taking over the world. Some guys actually get intimidated by that.
Yeah.
So it's quite important that you have a supportive partner that champions you, that kind of wipes your brow when you're having a stressful day and it hasn't always gone to plough, but celebrates your wins as well.
For sure. And I'm so lucky. I mean, he's super, super smart. And he's also been a founder before, which really helps. He completely gets the journey.
Yes.
I mean, he sold his business, and I think that just helps so much, understanding the pain points.
Absolutely.
I think we're also really good at asking for what we want.
Yeah.
So, say if I've had like that crazy stressful day or week, and he'll say like, do you want to talk through it? Do you just want emotional support? Like what do you want?
That's so lovely, because he's been through that journey as well.
Yeah. And it's so nice as well because, I really respect him. He's super smart. He's amazing for just talking through situations or problems, but he'll never push that on me. Like I'll have to usually ask for it rather than him just telling me how I should do it or shouldn't do it. And because that's not fun.
No. And you're like, well, thanks for your advice.
Yeah.
And because you're not like, you've run businesses before, and it sounds like he's successful like you as well, and sold businesses. So it's not like you're super young startups where you're just cutting your teeth on your first businesses. You've both learnt how to scale and how to support your health and well-being as well along the way. So you kind of know all the ups and downs of entrepreneur life. So that sounds really lovely and really healthy.
Yeah. And also it was really nice because I remember him saying, I'll never berate you for being on your phone, or if you've got to jump on your email or you've got to solve something, because I remember in a past relationship where that was the case, and he imposed these rules like you're not allowed to be on your phone or working after 6 p.m. or weekends.
Oh, wow.
It was really like quite controlling. And you know what it's like as a founder, if also sometimes you just want to do that, you want to work.
Yes.
It's exciting, and you want to build this thing that you're bringing to life.
Absolutely.
So to have like those kind of restrictions, it was just
not. It's suffocating, and also the buck stops with you when you run your business. If someone's sick and someone has to step in, or something's not going to plan, you can't just leave it 24 hours because it will all go to shit essentially.
Yeah.
The buck stops with you, and I've been there as well actually, where they just didn't get it. Like, switch off. I'm switched off. Like, why can't you put your laptop down? And it's when things can't wait that you have to jump on it, and having a supportive partner to kind of have your back, to make your supper when you don't have time to, and understand where you have to put in the extra miles that week or that day. So that's lovely. When you've been dating, have guys ever been intimidated by you and your success?
I don't think so. No. But I don't know whether... That's a really tough question. Because I don't know whether the people I've gone on dates with have, you know, had an element of their own success. Because I don't know whether... Sorry, I'm trying to think how to phrase this. You might just want to cut all of this bit out.
No, that's fine.
But, you know, people talk about like, if you're an ambitious female, you can either date across or date up, whereas guys can date anywhere, left, right, side, up and down.
This is a really good topic, dating up, dating sideways or dating down. Let's definitely discuss this for a minute. Yeah.
So, you know, the whole thing if you're an ambitious female, you can only date really across or up.
Agree.
But with a guy, they can date anywhere.
Yes.
And so obviously you're going for like a really small pool of men who have endless options. But going back to your point about whether I've dated people that have been like intimidated by the kind of the job role, I don't think so. But I think that might just be because of who I'm trying to date.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. And also if you've met someone on an app, they've normally got a little bit of a lowdown about who you are and your background. And a lot of people do their due diligence as well anyway. Like, okay, is this person legit and what they're up to? And, well, I certainly do anyway. I'll go onto Facebook, make sure they're not there with a wife and 3 kids.
Yeah.
I should have worked for MI5, actually. My friends send me some basic details. I'm like, you know, there's that meme that goes around. I can do it in about 15 seconds if I'm switched on that day. But we have to. I mean, that is the good thing about social media these days. We can do a little bit of due diligence.
Yeah.
But I'm digressing here, but you're right. I guess it depends how you present yourself. And I used to intimidate people, though, but it was mainly because I was still in my masculine energy. So 12 years, 10, 12 years ago, I had no idea what masculine and feminine energy was. And I'd go from the boardroom and launching a new hotel or whatnot and managing my team, and then masculine energy would just continue into the evening. And like, no wonder guys were intimidated by me. I was still in that assertive, confident, get shit done, like fast paced, instead of like embracing more of my feminine side, which is being present, it's not being a collapsed feminine, it's not being a wet lettuce, it's just being in your present moment, and instead of being in your future self. So it was quite interesting for me to learn all about that. And as I was saying, we've got Yutka coming on.
Yes, I cannot wait for that
in
episode.
The next pod. She's just the most amazing person to help people understand their masculine and feminine sides, and we both should embrace both and know when to embrace both as well.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And being a bit more conscious about it.
That exactly.
Yeah.
I remember setting a boundary or like an expectation at the beginning of the relationship, which I didn't mean to. But naturally, CEO, it's a very masculine kind of role. And as much as you can try and, lead with empathy and all these amazing feminine traits, you're still inherently in your masculine quite a lot. It is very decisive and, decision making, etc. And I remember saying to him, look, when I'm around you, I just want to switch off and I just want to be in my feminine. You can do all the decisions and do all that stuff. And it's worked so well.
Isn't it nice, though, when you're with a guy and they're like, hey, no worries, I'll book dinner, I'll book us a trip away, I'll go supermarket shopping, and they just make all the decisions. You're like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's so
and
good.
You're making decisions like every hour, every day, and you come home to someone who's just takes that all away, and you're like, oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And sometimes they think that you want to make all the decisions because you're decisive and that's what you do all day, but just to have someone to like, oh, no worries, sweetheart.
Yeah,
I've got it all under control. You're like, oh.
Yeah, it's like I've used my decision-making capacity throughout the day. Like
it's exhausted for today.
Yeah.
That's so lovely. So have you got any holidays planned after your launch?
Yes, I'm actually going to Cape Town in January.
Oh, so
January,
nice.
February. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. But otherwise, popping over to Poland in a couple of weekends' time.
Oh, very nice.
But there was supposed to be quite a few holidays I was going on this year that have just been, pushed aside because it's hard. It's so easy to say it's not the right time, but there's never going to be a right time. But these have been particularly bad times.
Yes.
So,
no, when you were in pre-launch phase, as we were saying before, every day counts. And then once you're up and running a bit more, you can take some time out for yourself. So, yeah.
But right now, I can't even imagine having, I don't know, more than 3 days off. Like that to me just seems wild.
Yeah. And do you have a big team to manage, or do you outsource a lot of your work?
Yeah, so we've got a small team. So really the core team is about 4 of us, and a couple of those roles are fractional as well.
Yeah.
So there's just an incredible amount on. But then
Yes.
our hardware and firmware teams are third parties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just external and internal teams and stuff to manage.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So as we start to wrap up, tell me three things you'd like to share with the audience to help them feel fabulous, fulfilled, and potentially find love.
Ooh. I think for fabulous, I have to go with sleep. That just,
Yes.
after what we've spoken about, that has to be the 101. So just prioritize sleep above everything and find out what works for you. So, for example, for me, not eating 2 to 3 hours before bed makes such a difference.
Of course, because your digestive system isn't on.
Yeah.
And that's, one of your largest store goods, isn't it, after your skin, is a digestive system. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And as you mentioned earlier, wine,
Yes.
any alcohol will completely trash my sleep. So
Yeah.
that is just, I rarely drink. And don't get me wrong, I still like to go out and have a really nice cocktail and things like that, but it's just not.
Once the data
not a regular.
speaks for how your sleep is, it's a game changer, isn't it?
Completely.
Yeah.
So I'd say prioritize sleep. And one of the other things I do, which to me is such a quick hack to make you feel good. So if you're having a really stressful day or whatever, I have a folder on my desktop, and I put in any screenshots of whether it's good feedback or positive investor comments, whatever those small wins are, and I just put it in there. So if I'm having a tough day, I just flick through them, and it is the best pick me up.
That's such a good hack. So saving all the feedback that you've got from investors, current customers, future customers potentially.
Yeah.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah. And I actually called the folder Happy until
I was about to say it's like a jar of happiness.
But then I had to use my laptop very publicly at an event. And so my friend just renamed it to 2029 Strategy. So it just looked like I've had my shit together.
And it's just a folder full of goodness.
Yes. Yeah. And then what was the third one? Oh,
Finding love.
Finding love. I would say, I think that your relationship with yourself 100% rules every relationship you have with everyone else. So I think just doing the work on yourself, which is, sometimes easier said than done, but I think it is just so, so important.
I agree. Take that time out to focus on yourself first, and then you can get your strategy together in terms of who you want, what your values are, and what kind of relationship you want.
For sure.
For your future self.
Yeah. And actually, just one note on that. I was speaking to someone the other day, and they were saying the thing is, though, when, they were talking about a particular guy they knew. He says, he's not good in a relationship, he gets triggered, whatever. So he'll break up, have time away, and think that he's, healed and he's better, but he's actually just removed the trigger. So he's not actually dealing with the real root cause. So I think you do have to do the deep work and be very, very honest with yourself.
Agree. And that can be quite uncomfortable for some people, having to really dig deep and see where your triggers, heal any potential trauma. And quite often you have to get a bit down and dirty with it all before you come good in the end.
Yeah.
And that's why I think a lot of people just bury their head in the sand and try to kind of wax over it a little bit, don't they?
Yeah.
And they hopefully it all won't show up next time in my relationship and whatnot. But it's absolutely just doing that inner work with a therapist, psychologist, journaling, whatever works for you, just helping you understand yourself better.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant for the long term overall.
Yeah.
Well, Laura, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on PS I Love Me. You've shared some amazing insights. Best of luck with the launch of Monk. I can't wait to get one at home, actually.
I can't wait for you to try it. And thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And we'll hopefully have you on the podcast again soon. That's it for today's episode of PS I Love Me. I hope you've learned some interesting nuggets to weave into your everyday life to feel a little lighter, brighter, and inspired. If you loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps more high-achieving women like yourselves to find us. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Linda Williams Coach, for more daily inspiration and updates.